But I think one of the big things there, and it's really, really easy, and we all do it, it's a human nature thing, is we remember or we pick out that one bit of feedback out of a whole host of feedback. So one person complains about the price, 10 people bought it, loved it, shared it, great. But you listen to that one person, and it's that, you just want to grab people and shake them, I guess. Anyway, it's just that.
At a very baseline, it's rejection. And we, as human beings, we're pack animals. We love to be accepted into our cohort, into our pack. Like, you know, when a client comes along or prospective client comes along and says, you're too expensive, therefore I can't work with you, it's an abject rejection. We can't help but take that in through osmosis. I remember the first time I got a 1-star review on my books. This is something I put 8 months of my life into writing, plus all of the editing, designing, and, you know, the rest of it, getting it published, and finally this thing's there. And then some idiot comes along and drops a 1-star review on there. And again, it was like dagger through the heart. I had 100 5-star reviews, and then this one guy, and he hadn't even read the book, he just disagreed with my interpretation of what the word startup meant. And then eventually, like, my coach reminded me, I said, you do know you got 100 5-star reviews? And I was like, oh yeah, but then this one's like really prominent. Everybody can see that because it's now at the top of the reviews. It's like growth mindset. What could you do about it then? I was like, I don't know. He said, could you go and get 20 more 5-star reviews, and then it'll just sink to the bottom. Nobody will care about it.
Yeah, totally. And just cover it with the truth. And there's nothing wrong with, I was talking to someone earlier, and again, it's trying to find the right sort of tribe to work with. There's nothing wrong with negativity and negative reviews and feedback, because not everyone's your perfect client, are there? That's the point. We can go to your book again, and not everyone's going to pay £20 for a golf lesson. Not everyone's going to pay £600 for a block of lessons. But you've got to find the right people, and as long as what you're doing is real, authentic, and actually adds value, you will find the right audience. You just need to be positive and get it out there, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's 7 billion people on this planet, and I always have to remind my clients, if you want to hit a 6-figure income, most small business owners, they only need like 100 raving fans, like a small number of clients. And if you can't find 100 people out of 7 billion, then you're kind of doing something wrong. One of my biggest bugbears, in the business world is when people say, my target market is SMEs, small, medium enterprises, right? And I have to remind them that in the UK, we've got 6 million businesses. Out of those 6 million, how many of them are L businesses, right? Large businesses. And I consider that to be businesses of 250 or more employees, right? There's only 40,000 of them, which basically means that every other business is an S or an M, a small or a medium business. That's all of the businesses. That's not a target market, that's everyone. Some of the most successful businesses that we've worked with are the ones who introduce artificial scarcity into their audience. So I like niching. Dog trainers, for example, you could be in a local area trying to help all of the dogs in your local area and their owners, of course. It's more often the problem. More often the case, it's a problem with the owners. Whereas actually the businesses, the dog trainers that have been the most successful are the ones who've chosen a specific breed to work with. So beagles or labs or dachshunds or you name it. And what happens there is they have that immediate fear. Oh, but then I've only got a select number of dogs in my local area. If I just do beagles, there's only so many beagles in the local area. I couldn't possibly do that. Be like, yeah, but then you specialize in beagles, you have far fewer clients, you do a better job, so you can be considered now an expert in space, charge more money for it, so the whole thing slows down. But then everybody knows you as being the expert in beagles, and the word starts to spread. So how many beagles are in the UK? Well, there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. How many beagles are there all around the world? Our beagle dog trainer now has 9,000 people in her Facebook group. I think it may have even clocked over 10,000 people, all beagle owners. Yeah. Who are hanging off her every word because they all see her as the expert in beagles.
It's that classic thing, isn't it? You ask for everyone, you get no one. You chase after everyone, you get no one. You've got to be really specific about who your ideal market is. And sometimes it's hard to get there. I remember trying to build a client avatar, and it's my one business, wedding photography. I know my ideal couple. I know them inside out. It's not a problem at all, but I've been doing it for nearly 20 years. So if I hadn't got it down by now, I think there's something wrong. But when it comes to corporate, because I do so many different things, it's like, right, okay, this is a challenge. And I worked with a coach, and it was very much a case of, right, so you do all these things, so we've got to break your message down. And we've actually broken it down into not quite a productization, which is what I want to go on with you in a minute, but it's niching down 4 or 5 times. So I've got 4 or 5 streams that I know I'm going after, but I've got to have all of them because they're all valid ways of working. But if I just say I'm a corporate photographer, who cares? And it's that you've got to make a difference. You know, my passion are people. So great, go after that and make a personal difference to people and, you know, stand out as the expert. And it makes such a difference. And you also get to do then what you actually love and work with people who get what you do. And that's where the magic is. You know, it's you don't go into a conversation to sell then, do you? It's very much a case of people are coming to you because you're the expert, and what better way to market?
Yeah, we always talk about reducing friction in the sales process by just, absolutely like 100% like ensuring that it's a really good product market fit. And the client has to know everything about you before you actually get onto the sales call. I know we're not here to talk about sales, but let's focus on the client for a second. So as a business owner, you want to ask yourself three questions when you're trying to work out who it is that you really want to work with. Okay, so the first one is, who do I love working with the most? And you can make a list of all of the different types of clients you would potentially like to work with. Put a column next to it, who do I love working with the most? Score it out of 10. The next question is, who do I get the best results for? Because you may love working with, you know, a specific group of people, but actually the results aren't optimal. And you may have to just sacrifice that love of working with that particular client for a bit if it means you get better results with a different audience. And that kind of outweighs it slightly. And the third one, and this is where a lot of British people balk at this because we don't like talking about money, but it's, can they afford to pay me? Because if you've got a better quality product, you know, and you're considered to be that expert, you do have to be more expensive. So therefore you've got to pick clients who can afford to work with you. Now there's always ways of kind of like, you know, it doesn't have to be all the money down up front. You know, you can get creative about how they pay for you and things like that. You mustn't ever compromise on your value, how much you value yourself. You know, if you're an expert in a niche, you need to be expensive. And therefore you can actually afford to work with far fewer clients. You get more time to deliver a better quality result. And ultimately you end up making more money on the back